Hello and welcome to ECO 201 Macroeconomics. My name is Sean Bokelman and I will be your instructor for the course. As I'm sure you're all aware, the current events are forcing all of us to make some changes. And while you were probably expecting to learn in a classroom, we must proceed, for now at least, in an online format. I don't anticipate this transition being too difficult, as most of us are comfortable with current technology and interacting digitally. But if you do find it difficult to learn in a digital environment, please do not hesitate to contact myself or any other of the team members here at Georgia Military College, Fayetteville. For this module's lecture series, we will begin by reviewing the course syllabus, and then we will move on to learning material covered both in Chapter 1 as well as material from Appendix A of your textbook. All right, so looking at your syllabus here, starting from the top, of course, again, my name is Professor Sean Bokelman. You can reach me at my Georgia Military College email address, sbokelman@gmc.edu. And because of the digital nature of this class, as well as the extenuating circumstances of what's going on in the world around us, you can also text me at my cell phone number here, 678-779-2211. Please only reach out to me via text. I will respond to you as soon as possible. And if I feel it's necessary, I will set up a time to speak with you on the phone. But please only initially reach out via text. If you wish to speak on the phone, then mention that in your text message, and we'll find a time to talk. The reason for this is because I screen my calls, and if you just straight up call me, there's a good chance I'll just hang up on you or reject your call. So go ahead and text me first. Let me know who you are, and that you're a student of mine, and that whatever you need to talk about, go ahead and list that out. Another thing to note here too is that this syllabus is a general outline for the course, and of course it is subject to change, which may be the case if we end up transitioning back to in-class meetings. Beyond the note there, of course, take a look at the prerequisite here. You will need some basic understanding of algebra and how to read and interpret graphs, which you should have learned in Mat 94 or some other math course. So if you do not feel comfortable with basic algebra and or reading and interpreting graphs, I highly recommend you reconsider taking a class that covers those things before attempting this course. We will cover it briefly as a review, but you should have had a course in these things already. And if you haven't, you may want to reconsider taking this class at this time. It is a course that is good for 5 quarter hours, so I guess that's good to know, may be important to you. As far as the course description, we will be going over, in an introductory manner, the theory of macroeconomics, with an examination of the nature and operation of the American economic system. So, of course, we're here in the United States, so we will focus on utilizing the things we learned to analyze our own economic system. We will study the economic components of the American and international economy, the basics of economics, supply and demand. We'll also look at the circular flow diagram, gross domestic product, which is an incredibly important concept in macroeconomics. And we'll wrap up the end of the term looking at different policy levers that the government or other agencies have to try to move our economy in one direction or another. And those would be fiscal and monetary policy. So those are the course objectives. The course description. The learning objectives for the course. You should be able to demonstrate knowledge of basic elements and concepts of macroeconomics. You should be able to discuss concepts of national income accounting, identify the dynamics of fiscal policy, as well as analyze the relationship of money, monetary policy, and the Federal Reserve System, how those things work together. If you can successfully do those things at the end of the semester, you will pass the class with at least a B. All right, and then as far as the contents of the course, we will get a brief introduction to economics, followed by learning the supply and demand model, which is sort of the common thread between micro and macro. And then we'll go on to learn sort of macro-specific topics, starting with gross domestic product. We will also look at perhaps some other measures of the economy. Those will include unemployment and inflation, among other things. And then, like I said, we will go on from there into fiscal and monetary policy. To some extent, we'll talk about global economics and international trade. And throughout the course, we will be, of course, focusing on critical thinking and ethical issues related to economics as well. As far as course materials, you need the textbook Economics Today by Roger Leroy Miller, 18th edition or 19th edition, really any edition higher than 17, I think would be fine, but I don't think it really matters actually, because I believe that you guys, you get the textbook as part of your tuition from the bookstore. So this should be the exact edition they give you. So in any case, be sure you pick that up as soon as you possibly can from the college bookstore. Now, of course, methodologies of instruction. This is one of those sections that may be subject to change. But given the current circumstances, class will be taught through online video lecture. You're watching one right now. And I will support this video lecture with PowerPoint slides that you have access to through Moodle. And those materials will be further supported through active student discussions on Moodle in the discussion forums for each module. And by the way, each module roughly corresponds to a chapter. There are a couple modules that do not exactly correspond to one chapter. There may be one and part of a chapter for some modules, but in any case, that's how we will be engaging in participation, is through those discussion forums. And I will post discussion topics and questions to spark those discussions. So keep an eye out for those. As far as video lectures, they will become available the day before the scheduled lecture. So this is being released the day before we are scheduled to start, so that you can go ahead and take a look at it if you want, get a head start. But in any case, that's the sort of schedule I will be releasing lecture videos at. Okay. Probably the most important part to you, course assessment. How will you earn your grade in this course? So here's how it's broken down. Participation, which is basically what I just talked about with the discussion forums, will be 10% of your grade. And so to get a full credit, all 10% in the participation category, you'll be required to post at least one contribution to each chapter or module's discussion forum. As it turns out, this will also be the way that I take attendance. So if you post in a discussion forum, you will be counted as present for that module. So make sure that you're doing that not only for attendance grade, or attendance rather, you're not technically not graded on attendance, although it basically turns out to be your participation grade as well. So in a sense, you are graded for attendance, but in any case, just make sure you post a discussion post in the forum, at least one. Hopefully you'll participate beyond the minimum, but that's what you'll have to do to earn that 10% grade there. Homework is the next category, counts for 15% of your grade. And the way that homeworks will work is it will be 20 multiple choice questions that are randomly chosen. So you will basically see 20 questions that come from a question bank. And the great thing about homeworks is you can take the homework for a module or chapter over and over again, unlimited attempts. And so basically you can pretty much guarantee yourself those 15 percentage points if you just repeat the homeworks until you get a 100. And one reason I do this is because this course can be pretty difficult for some people. And this is a way to help them get the best grade possible, even though they might find quizzes and exams to be relatively difficult. This is a difficult class, so please expect that. So use the fact that you can attempt these homeworks an unlimited amount of times to your advantage. Okay. Now, I should add that it's an unlimited number of attempts up until the due date. So these homeworks will have a due date after which you can no longer attempt them. But before the due date, you can attempt them as many times as you'd like. And then after homeworks, there are the quizzes, which basically are also 15% of your grade. They will look identical to the homeworks almost in terms of their format, 20 multiple choice questions. The only difference really is that you only get one attempt, and that attempt is timed. You are limited to 40 minutes to finish the quizzes. So just be aware of that. You're going to want to study. You're not going to want to just jump straight from the homeworks right into the quizzes. Although maybe that will work for some of you. I guess it really just depends on you and what is best for you. But in any case, be aware that you only have one attempt on the quiz, and it is timed, limited to 40 minutes. Let's see here. After that, the next grade item is 3 midterm exams. So there will be 3 midterm exams, each worth 15% for a total of 45%. They will be 50 multiple choice questions. Let's see, I'll scroll down here to this part here. 50 multiple choice questions, each with 4 answer choices. Now, I will add here that something else that I do to help people out is to replace their lowest midterm exam grade with their final exam grade if they do better on their final. So, for example, if your lowest midterm exam grade was a 65 and you got a 80 on the final, that 65 would be replaced with an 80, okay? Now, if your lowest grade was a 65 and you got a 60 on the final, that would not replace your 65. Your 65 would not become a 60. Okay, I don't penalize you, but basically, if you do better on the final, there's a way for me to reward you for doing better on the final and catching up and redeeming yourself to some extent. Okay, so be aware of that. Now, as far as the final goes, it is also worth 15% of your grade. Approximately 1/3 or 33% of it will be new material that we cover that is not on any of the midterm exams. So basically, I think that turns out to be the last 2 or 3 chapters of the term. And then the remaining 2/3 or 66% of the material will be from previous midterm exams. So material that we have already covered and been tested on. Okay, so be aware of that. It will be 100 multiple choice questions. All right, so keeping with grades here, just be aware that any grade review that you would like to occur must be initiated with myself, the division chair, or faculty lead of the department, or the assistant dean within 30 days of the end of the grading period in which the grade was reported. So just be aware of that if you want to request any grade reviews. Now, if any of you feel like you need an accommodation or assistance based on the impact of a disability, you should contact Student Disability Coordinator, Dr. Pomoja, who's also our academic dean, to complete the process of being verified and obtaining that accommodation or assistance. You can reach him at his office in room 101 on campus, or probably the preferable method would be for you to call him at the number listed here. Okay, moving on. As far as administrative procedures go, just some rules basically of the course and things to remember. The drop add process and the withdrawal process is your responsibility. So remember that and keep that in mind. As far as absences go, a maximum of 3 absences is allowed before you will be withdrawn from the class. As soon as you have a 4th absence, you will be withdrawn by myself from the class. So don't miss these things. And remember that I'm taking attendance with your participation in the discussion forums. Okay, so and those basically need to happen the day that that material is covered. Okay, so refer to the schedule that you see below here. Okay. Let's see here. This part about attendance being taken via YouTube lecture, I need to change that, so I'll be right back. So again, attendance will be taken via your participation in each module's discussion forum. Now, this last procedure here, since there will be plenty of time for you to complete all assignments at your convenience, since this class will be delivered online, there will be no makeup opportunities for missed homeworks, quizzes, or exams. Okay, so no excuses. Okay. Now on to the ethics statement. Georgia Military College emphasizes character and ethical behavior in all aspects of the curriculum. So during the quarter, any ethical issues or dilemmas will be discussed as they pertain to economics. I will include some type of activity in this area. Okay. Now, since it's the primary goal of education to increase your own knowledge, academic dishonesty will not be tolerated at Georgia Military College, and students and faculty are expected to abide by the Georgia Military College Honor Code, which is, I will not lie, cheat, steal, nor tolerate those who do. So please adhere to this code. It is for your own good and for the good of those fellow students around you. All right, and lastly, we will take a look at the tentative schedule for the term. So this is class meeting number 1 or module number 1. Today, you should watch this no later than Thursday, March 19th. And we will be covering material from, of course, the syllabus, which is what we're doing now. And then we'll move on to covering Chapter 1 as well as Appendix A, which I will add here to the schedule. All right, moving on from there, we will cover Chapter 2, which covers scarcity, the concept of scarcity, and the concept of trade-offs and different types of trade-offs. And as you can see here in the schedule, there's also this column here where it tells you what is due on this date. Okay, so Thursday, March 19th, by midnight, you are to have turned in and completed the homework number 1, which covers Chapter 1 as well as Appendix A. For class meeting number 2, module number 2, we'll cover Chapter 2, which means you will have a homework due that night on Chapter 2. Your quiz for Chapter 1 will also be due that night. And this continues on in a similar fashion. So the following week, Thursday, March 26th, you should have watched by then the video lecture on Chapter 3, as well as on Chapter 4, Section 1, and Chapter 4, Section 2. Again, you'll have a homework due on those chapter and chapter sections, as well as a quiz on the previous chapter. Next, we will move on to the macro-focused chapters. So Chapter 7, talking about the macroeconomy and unemployment and inflation. And then the following class meeting or module, it will be your first exam, basically. So there won't be any video lecture that day that you're responsible for watching. No homeworks or quizzes due that day. All you have to worry about completing by the end of that day is Exam 1, and it covers Chapters 1 through 4.2. It does not cover Chapter 7. Chapter 7 will be on the next exam. Following Exam 1, we'll cover Chapter 8, which is on measuring the economy's performance, followed by Chapter 10, which we will learn about real GDP and price level in the long run. And then we'll move on to Chapter 11, which looks at 2 of the sort of competing models in macroeconomics, although I wouldn't necessarily call them competing. One kind of has the other embedded within it. Anyway, we'll learn all about that when we get to Chapter 11. Following that, you'll have your second exam, which covers Chapters 7, 8, and 10. Again, there will be no quiz, homework, or video lecture for that day. All you have to worry about is the exam. Following that, we will move on to Chapter 12, but we will only cover sections 1 through 4, which go over consumption and real GDP. We will be skipping Section 5 on the multiplier, so you don't have to worry about that for that module. We'll then move on to Chapter 13, which covers fiscal policy, followed by Chapter 14, which is all about deficit spending and public debt. Following Chapter 14, we'll have our third midterm exam, which covers Chapters 11, 12, and 13, followed by Chapter 15, which covers money, banking, and central banking. And we will wrap it all up with Chapter 16, which is about the domestic and international aspects of monetary policy. The following class meeting will basically be, there will be no video lecture. The only thing you'll have to worry about is Quiz 12 over Chapter 16. And you will have to turn in your written assessment, which will be assigned on May 12th for the 14th module or class meeting. And we'll talk about that more as we get closer to the end of the semester. And then the last class meeting or module is just the final exam. So you'll have to complete your final exam by the end of the day, May 21st. Now, this is, of course, assuming that we continue with the digital format through the entirety of the term. That may change. it really just depends on what happens in the next few weeks here. So, but we're gonna all stay in touch and be well informed and communicate with each other throughout this entire process, and everything should be fine. All right. So if you're feeling a little anxious or worried about any of this, totally understandable. Just take a few deep breaths and realize that everything's going to be okay. And that concludes the syllabus portion of this module.